Good evening at 6 o'clock in the council chambers, Tuesday, September 23rd. Call to order, roll call. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Identify possible conflicts of interest. Seeing none, moving on to item D, public comment period, correspondence. At this time, I'll recognize persons in attendance wishing to address the council. Upon recognition by me, persons may address the council, first stating their name and address. Comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes, and persons are asked to be respectful when addressing the council. No action will be taken regarding items not on the agenda. However, the council will take comments from the public under advisement. Please note that council members will not respond to your comments or questions. Bill Penker.
Good evening, Bill Penker, 600 Sycamore Avenue. I have two sets of comments this evening. The first references the redevelopment of the shoe factory, and the second references your recent discussions of the interconnected issues of water mains, fire hydrants, airport runways, and potential housing development. We're now at request for qualifications 2.0. And if this RFQ fails, what is your contingency plan? What is your strategic plan at that point? Do you go to RFQ 3.0? Do you sell the building or perhaps demolish it to create a blank development space? Do you leave it vacant and risk a maintenance money pit till a developer comes forward? Do you reassess the Second Street concept? Or does rent-controlled housing become the default option? And let's assume a developer has a viable plan and adequate resources. What is your response when he says, I don't want my tenants looking at the unsightly north side of Second Street? When are you going to clean it up? And the last comments. You've had discussions and debates about the interconnected issues of water mains, fire hydrants, housing development, and an airport runway. On a scale of 0 to 10, to what extent have your discussions and debates been aligned with your mission and vision, goals and values as stated in the comprehensive plan? Because they are the point of connection between all of those. On the other hand, are they being considered as separate, distinct issues? I have to finish tonight with a comment that was given to me, was accosted in the Menards parking lot by an irate gentleman who said, you're a commissioner and you know how to talk to those people. So, edited for civility purposes, and this is addressed to the Common Council. Why can't they, you, use old pavement and make blacktop for the airport? The gentleman was very concerned about that. Thought you could take street waste and turn that into asphalt and then repave. And then he asked, and this is relative to the potential housing development, who's going to pay for the water trucks Everett and the boys will need to fight fires north of the water tower? I would take those comments to mean the gentleman is not viewing these meetings and finding out, or potentially we need some more information being given to the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other citizen comments? Any other citizen comments? Any other citizen comments? Seeing none, move on to item E, approval of minutes, September 9th, 2025. A motion by Alderman Varsho, second by Alderman Dellis. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Werman?
Yeah.
That motion passes. Thank you. Staff updates.
I'm not aware of any this evening.
Mayor's comments. I have 4 comments to bring to you this evening. The United Way campaign has started in the city of Marshfield. Let's help make this the best year ever. Second, Main Street Marshfield Farmers Market has been going on since June, and I apologize that I did not bring this forth before now. This next Tuesday, September 30th, will be their last of the year. Times are 8 to 1. They started with 2, and they were up to 15 vendors that come to the parking lot. I was there this morning and buzzed around, and it was great. Absolutely fantastic. Very glad that Main Street is still making this happen. Mackey Farmers Update, Festival Foods parking lot. Saturdays through October 11th from 7:30 to 1. And the 4th comment is the Marshfield Senior Health Fair is Friday, October 3rd from 9 to 2 at the 2nd Street Community Center. The event is free and open to the public. Any questions, contact Amanda at Park and Rec Department. She told me I could tell you that. So that ends my report. Council's comments. Seeing none, city administrator's update.
Just 2 things, and they both relate to dates. The first one is talking about the upcoming budget meetings. First of all, staff is in the process right now of kind of pulling together the proposed budget, which you'll get late next week. And then the first meeting will be Monday, October 6th. That'll be at 6 p.m. The second meeting will be at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October 14th. That will be prior to the regular council meeting that night at 7 o'clock. So 5, and then we'll take a break around 6:45 and then delve into the regular business. The other 2 on the following Monday nights, Monday the 20th and Monday the 27th, if necessary, all at 6 p.m. So look forward to those meetings with the council. And then the other thing is I was feeling people out via email on strategic planning. You know, we did cancel the meetings that were supposed to be held this month because we didn't have a solid quorum. Been talking about January. I did ask if anybody who couldn't make January dates would let me know. I've heard from 2 individuals, one who said the dates won't work, the other who said they're not sure about their work schedule, which is certainly fine. But it does appear that from the lack of response beyond that, one person did respond positively, but I'm going to take that to mean that the dates of January 17th and January 31st are good for a solid quorum of this body. I'm expecting that to be at least 8. So I'm going to work with the facilitator to get those set up this week. That's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Seeing none, consent agenda, meeting minutes, and reports. Motion by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman Weigel. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Werman?
Yes.
That motion passes, and we can skip over item L because there's no action to be removed from the consent agenda. Item M, election of utility commissioner for the citizen appointment to a 7-year term on the Marshfield Utilities Commission, presented by me. A motion by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman Giles. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Werman?
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations, Paul. Item N, first reading of ordinance number 1534, Municipal Court Amendment to Chapter 18, modifying Section 18-82, nonconforming and substandard lots, and Section 18-83, nonconforming structures, presented by Steve Bard, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. These 2 ordinances items on the agenda, this one and the following one, are kind of companion, if you will. They both relate to somewhat the same issue, and that is setbacks from right-of-way for situations where there's a non-conforming possibility. So the first one, ordinance 1534, talking about the fact that right now, if you have a property that is a certain distance from the street and maybe the closest building is, say, 25 feet away or 30 feet away or whatever, it meets the setback requirement. But then someone comes along, someone, meaning the city, comes along and perhaps buys more right-of-way and expands the city use to be like a street, for example. Let's say Peach is a street that might come up. We want to widen that to 4 lanes. We'd be acquiring more right-of-way, and that would make potentially some of the properties along Peach non-conforming because the building that's supposed to be at least 25 feet from the right-of-way now might be 20 feet from the right-of-way. The intent of this particular ordinance is to say that in that case, it would be considered to be not non-conforming. It would be a status that's legal non-conforming, for lack of a better term, and would be acceptable because the the violation, if you will, if you want to call it that, was created by the city. It's not a violation, but the nonconformance was created by the city and not by the property owner. So this is the first reading of ordinance 1534. We're not looking for any action, but that is the heart of this, which is making it clear that someone who has a nonconformance come like that through no actions of their own would not be considered to be in violation. I would take any questions, however. Otherwise, we'd set it for second reading and adoption on October 14th.
Any questions for Steve? Seeing none, move on to item O, first reading of ordinance number 1535, municipal code amendment to chapter 18, modifying regulations related to major street setbacks, presented by Steve Barg, city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, again, this is a companion one to the last one. This is kind of what triggered the last one. The Plan Commission wanted these two to be bundled together to make sure that there was no one being put in a bad position by ordinance 1535 that didn't have a way to make sure that their status was acceptable. So 34 kind of ties to 35 here. For a long time, the city has had a major street setback of 50 feet. The idea was if you're on along McMillan or portions of Lincoln, portions of Peach, portions of Oak, you know, where it's expected maybe that someday expansion might occur to the right of way and to the road surface, that we want to make sure you're far enough away to where there won't be a non-compliance as a result. So a 50-foot setback has been imposed on those areas. That's a pretty considerable distance to have to be from the right of way. So what we're doing here is saying, okay, is that really necessary or is that excessive? And staff reviewed it, and staff's determination, and we brought it to the Plan Commission, they agreed with us, is just say, let's have a little bit of buffer from what would be the normal setback for that district. So for example, if you have a setback in the district that we're talking about where a property is of 25 feet, okay, so what we then say, make the ordinance say that you need to be that distance that the setback of the district requires plus 10 feet. So instead of being 50 feet away from where you can build in that particular district, you would only have to be 35 feet. We kind of feel like the 50-foot requirement is a little bit arbitrary and a little bit excessive for most of the situations we come upon. We get the idea that in fact there may be roadway expansion or other development happening along that strip, but it seemed a bit much. So you see in the rest of the ordinance, if you read it, that that's what it's about, taking that and saying, look, we're going to get rid of 50 feet, replace it by 10 feet plus the underlying zoning district requirement. Once again, like the last ordinance, this is not presented for approval tonight. It's for first reading and conversation if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will schedule it for Tuesday, October 14th for second reading and adoption.
Alderman Werman?
Thank you. I just got one, Steve. I was trying to just comb through again because I didn't remember seeing anything earlier, and I just wanted to verify I'm not crazy. But it just for the sake of, you know, the oddball purposes, is there anything in here that, like, if the house is in the process of being sold, like, essentially, like, how are we documenting this? So, like, if something changes, like the house gets foreclosed on and the bank owns it, you know, and somebody buys it, or if the house is just in the midst of being sold or something, how are we documenting this so that whoever's buying the house knows that they're essentially grandfathered in, is kind of what we're saying, or like, or we're meeting certain conditions so that they don't have to, you know, kind of jump through hoops or worry that at some point this will come back to bite them. Because I'm sure if anybody in the city has bought property before and, you know, owned a piece of property where this happened to them or they've heard about this, like, could be something on their mind. Just want to make sure that we're covering all bases.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think anything is expected to be recorded in property files at the county as a result of this. But what we will have documentation of the dates that these ordinances were approved and when things change in terms of what the expectations are for those properties. So hopefully if the realtor or the financing agent or the buyer himself or herself would contact us, we'd be able to look at the fact that the change was made and in fact the lower restriction has been applied to that property.
Any other questions for Steve? I'll move on to item P, request to approve resolution number 2025-25, declaring the official intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing for the Brain Park Wet Detention Basin project, presented by Josh Moritz, Acting Director of Public Works.
Thank you. So in November of 2024, the city was notified that it was successful in receiving a DNR Urban Non-Point Source Construction Grant for the Brain Park Wet Detention Basin. That grant was for $150,000. That is a reimbursement grant. We will be reimbursed once that pond is constructed. We're also made aware of that time of an additional funding source being utilizing a clean water fund loan that has 25% principal forgiveness. That loan application deadline is the 30th of this month, and our consultant is finalizing the paperwork for that. So part of that requirement is to approve a resolution that's attached in your packet that it's required by the IRS, and it declares that the city's official intent to reimburse a municipal account with proceeds from a tax-exempt bond or promissory note. Essentially, it's saying we will be spending the money before the loan proceeds will be received. So it's just a step in the process of the application. Recommendation is, excuse me, to approve resolution 2025-25.
We have a motion by Alderman Giles, second by Alderman Coran. Any questions, comments for Josh? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Werman?
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you. Review funding requests from non-city organizations and make decisions for inclusion in the 2026 city budget presented by Steve Bard, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, last week, the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee heard presentations from Jenna Hansen and Sierra Starner-Heffron, sorry, struggled there for a minute. Hopefully I got it. From Main Street, Marshfield, and from Mackey, looking for money in the 2026 city budget. And they did good presentations, had a good Q&A with the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee. I did ask those who were not at that meeting to please watch the video. Hopefully some of you were able to do that so that some of your questions might be answered. These requests are not new. The one with Mackey has been ongoing for a number of years. It's for the Business Development Director position. Main Street also has been a recipient of these monies in the past for different downtown purposes. What you see in front of you tonight is a request from Mackey, actually the Community Foundation, I should say, or the Chamber Foundation, for $53,000, be $47,000 toward the Business Development Director position, and the other $6,000 for promotion, marketing, workforce, and entrepreneurial development activities. Again, this is very similar to past years that have been through this body. The one for Main Street Marshfield is for $28,000. $18,000 would be for downtown beautification efforts, and $10,000 for downtown marketing. The specifics of those are laid out in the documents that I put in your packet. Just a note before you discuss this, we really would like to see the council come to a conclusion tonight as to how much they want to fund of these two requests so that we can get it in the city budget that we bring to you on October 6th. Monies, if appropriated for these individual bodies, would be through the 205 Economic Development Fund as they have been in the past. And if there are any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, I would look for a deliberation and a decision on what you wish to do with these two requests. The individuals involved that I mentioned did the presentations are here in case you have any questions for them.
Alderman Spiros?
Thank you. Steve, could you review how much each of these organizations were given last year, and how much they requested and how much they were ultimately given compared to the request?
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. The Marshfield Area Chamber Foundation asked for the same thing last year that they're asking for now. As I mentioned, that's kind of a request that we've had the same dollars for a couple of years now. $47,000 for the position of Business Development Director as we cost share with Mackey for that position, and then $6,000 for marketing, promotion, those kind of things. The city did vote ultimately after some discussion to support that based upon the date that a new Business Development Director was selected. You may recall that Karen Olson resigned effective December 31st of 2023. And, but when Sierra, when Sierra came on board in March, it was agreed that we would start with April 1st for the contributions to Mackey, and it was prorated. So I don't have it in front of me. I think maybe we shared it with you before, but 3/4 of those funds have been paid or will be paid out by the end of calendar year 2024, 25, I should say. So of the $53,000, roughly $40,000 or thereabout will be expended. Main Street Marshfield asked for initially $30,000. They were ultimately granted $17,200, $10,000 for downtown beautification, and $7,200 for downtown marketing projects. So 17.2 of the 30 were allocated.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Alderman Werman?
Thank you. So one thing that I feel like we've been kind of talking around lately, especially when communications brought up their budget deficit as well. I had kind of asked the same thing, and I believe there was little bits of this kind of talked about in the video, but really what I'm looking for here is I would feel more comfortable approving this. I think the discussion that we had more recently was, let's basically give this another year for a few of these groups as like a proving ground, if you will. Say we're reinvesting, we're saying yes, but then if in a year we aren't noticing massive economic development or big changes, then we need to reevaluate. And I think the one thing that I'm missing when I look at this is I'm seeing the cost, essentially, where this money is being allocated to, but I want to know what these groups are offering that the city can't offer. And if we can offer it, what is it going to cost us to offer it? So why is this a benefit to us? But also, what is the return on investment? I think we're missing that in a lot of places. And I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm just saying we're not seeing it. It's really hard to put money into a budget without knowing whether or not it's going to pay off. Like, is it like gambling? Am I just putting 28,000 in and hoping something comes back? Like, we need to see more detail on that so I can be confident in saying, like, hey, I put 28,000 out there. This year stuck. We only made 16,000 back for the city or something like that. But the problem is I feel like year after year, we keep going to this where we're not bringing in revenue and we're struggling to identify where those sources are. This could be one of those sources, but we need to be able to see that. So I'm not that I don't want to give an answer to tonight. I would feel more comfortable seeing that, knowing that I'm going to be reinvesting into a group that I know is going to have money coming back to the city, and that we're going to be able to justify that, hey, we couldn't do this in-house. And I think that's one of the biggest things is seeing we don't have the budget on our own, but even if we did, it would cost us this much compared to paying them to do it this much, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you, Derek. I would like if Sierra could come to the podium and just give us just a kind of high overview. I know you did that 2 weeks ago, but if you can, just kind of give us that again. And if there's something else that you want to add to that, that would be great. And then Jen, if you would like to go second, if that's okay. Thank you very much.
So I guess in response to that, so you're paying for my position. There's nobody else doing this at the city. So, I mean, there was a lot of discussion about, who's doing what. The city doesn't have a economic development specialist or a team at all, really. So, I mean, cutting this, yes, you would save money, but then there is absolutely, there's nobody doing this. So, for return on investment, I would like to know more of like what you're looking for, specifics of like, in what way could we show economic development?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, I mentioned at the beginning of this to the council, we'd like to see you potentially end this conversation by giving direction as to what you'd like to see in the 2026 budget. You don't have to do that. I mean, if you can do that tonight, that'd be helpful. Certainly the budget conversations are going to talk about all the funds, including the 205 fund use and what we're doing in planning and economic development, broadly speaking anyway, with the rest of our allocation of money. So I guess maybe the best thing we could have is to clear up all the information required. I just thought if you knew where you wanted to go with it, it'd certainly be instructive to do so. But certainly if Sierra or Jenna, when she comes up, if they're able to come back later or provide something in writing that would address those questions, that's a possibility as well.
Okay, Derek, I'm going to let you go ahead because you started the conversation, and then we'll go to Alderman O'Reilly and then Alderman Tompkins. Is that fair for everybody? Thank you. Go ahead, Derek.
I think, yeah, I just wanted to respond real quick, just to clarify. And I'm 100% aligned, just so you know, like, just to be 100% clear, not an attack or anything. I just want to put it on paper. I want to be able to say, like, here's the position that you're doing. We don't offer this in the city. If we were to hire somebody in the city, this is what the step that is going to go through. And I don't expect you to come up with those numbers, but I feel like having that on paper to show this is the benefit of going and utilizing Mackey, putting money into that, putting money into downtown Marshfield, those types of things. Like the Mackey presentation, when I'm talking about return on investment, we have a note in there about around 22 new businesses started citywide in 2025. I think that's fantastic. I think we all think that's fantastic. I just want to know, what does that do for the city? Like, we need to be able to start showing those numbers, especially because as the budget becomes more of a concern, and I'm sure y'all are no strangers to it, hearing it and us as a council talk about it. We're talking about these deficits that we're facing every year. So when we get these presentations, what we're looking at is let's spend. But really what we're spending for is a return. Like that alone, that line, 22 new businesses, that's huge. I mean, when people think about that, you could complain all you want, but if people aren't happy that there's another coffee shop going on North Central, we have another coffee shop coming to town. Maybe they think IHOP is gross. Well, we just had IHOP combined with Applebee's, so that's another thing that we didn't have before. And whether or not you guys are playing a role in that, I think those types of things are huge, and it is doing things for the city, whether it's keeping people here after sports events or drawing people to town, little things like that, and we just don't show those numbers enough. And I think they're there, but the problem is when we're doing these budget meetings, all we're seeing is a line item of this is how much money we have to spend, and all it does is scare everyone and say we don't have the money for this, when in reality, if we weren't investing in this, we probably wouldn't be bringing money back to the city. And I think we need to start documenting that. So I'm 100% aligned with your position and comments. I just wanted to be able to say, we should start putting that on paper, because I think there is a benefit to using Mackey and downtown Marshfield and the various other groups that we use, and we're not showing that.
Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just looking for a clarification. If this is approved tonight, these numbers still have to be approved through the budget itself, correct?
Yeah, they would just be put into the budget that you see on October 6th. That's all that would happen. You could certainly review it again at that point as part of the entire document.
Thank you.
Alderman Tompkins?
Thank you. So what I'm hearing Derek say is something that Steve did for us for the renovation grant. He would often say, we invested this much money into this grant, and this is how much tax revenue that we have gained from that. So I think I'm hearing if there's a way to say we have 22 new businesses, so because those businesses are in these buildings now have a tax, assessment that's higher. This is how much the city's getting. So I think that's what I'm hearing. I would just like to say that what I'm seeing in this presentation shows a lot has been done in a year. New things that weren't done before. I really like your emphasis on workforce, because we have looked at the numbers and we know that our population will go down and our workforce is aging. And so I like how you have been really trying to focus on that. I know that's really hard to quantify, but I do like that focus and the fact that you are helping startups. What did you say, 15 or 11 startups that you're helping? So those sort of things, I just think that this position that you have filled it well, and it's encouraging to see the difference from last year to this year.
Thank you, Sierra. Jenna?
I just wanted to speak a little bit to the ROI and the questions that are related to that. I think one of the things we wanted to do when we put this proposal through to the city was to try to identify items that we were either hearing a lot about from businesses, really trying to identify those things that would have bigger impact. So one of the things that, is in our request is planters. Obviously the flowers downtown, just to beautify downtown and have people enjoy that downtown experience and linger longer in the businesses and restaurants and want to stay. We fight the fact that we have a 4-lane highway down our downtown, in our downtown, and just trying to find ways to make that more beautiful and more lively and energizing for people to want to stay downtown. So the planters piece is, essentially that to try to, it's the tangible outcome of having those planters planted. Other cities do have that in their budget regularly that we don't here in Marshfield. And so, I think that's always something, if that's wants to be considered, it wouldn't have to come necessarily from Main Street, but to have that budget. And then it's the planning and organization of that as far as working with the different departments to make sure that all of those things are done and maintained, and reviewing, the design of the flowers and those sorts of things. So that's part of it. We had some additional grant opportunities that we had listed this year for our funding requests, simply because those are the things that we hear a lot about from the businesses that are downtown. Welcome Back specifically was something that we were getting funding from the county, and they wanted to see city support. And so we're here asking for city support so that we continue those programs. Again, seeing the visual changes on the buildings and being able to identify murals or other things happening, I think those are very tangible things that we can definitely show the impact of those and, you know, quantify in some way. Same thing with the business marketing grants. Again, another grant program that businesses continue to ask for, just help with that marketing. And again, helping them learn how to do it so that it's not something that we're continually doing, but they can take those skills and continue to utilize them to, again, try to increase those sales and increase opportunities downtown. And then the last one on here was the district promotion. And again, trying to bring more visitors downtown is another thing that, you know, we want to continue to try to do. So those 4 things were, you know, really the heart of what we wanted to try to accomplish next year, to continue some of those programs that have been successful in the past, that we have that experience with and that we would love to see continue.
Any questions for Jenna? Seeing now we have a motion on the floor by Alderman Cran. And Alderman Cran, what is your motion?
I would move that we put plan $53,000 for the chamber and $28,000 for the Main Street program into the budget for further discussion during our 4 budget meetings.
And Alderman Dallas, do you agree with that as a second?
Yes.
Any other conversation or questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Werman? Mr. Werman?
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for talking off the cuff also. That was great, both of you. Item R, request to authorize request for qualifications RFQ for redevelopment of the current wine burner facility, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, at our last meeting on September 9th, the council reviewed a new draft of an RFQ, second go around. It was referred to earlier by a speaker as 2.0, where we're going to be seeking companies interested in working with the city on renovation and redevelopment of the wine burner facility at 305 West 3rd Street. Council seemed very favorable in general toward this RFQ. The main question was brought up, was kind of the theme of the questions, if I can say that, was possibly to soften the language a little bit. In other words, the council knows what they want, what they'd like to see in terms of market rate or above housing, and maybe a mixed use element such as some light commercial or retail in the building. But we don't want to be dictating exactly that it must be that, or that we won't look at the any responses that we get. So to lighten it up a little bit, I called it softening. So anyway, we worked out on this at staff level and with our consultant, Jackie Misch from Vandewall. And first of all, before I go into the changes, most of this document has not been changed since the last time you saw it. Because if you remember, the majority of this document really is historical in nature. There's like 5 pages in a row that talk about the history of the property, what it's been used for, and you know, the historic nature of it, that it's on the historic register and things like that. That's unchanged. So really, I'm going to call your attention to page 3, which is where most of the changes occur between this version and the one you saw earlier. And I'll walk through these. On page 3, we've under desired reuse project in the second paragraph, we've replaced the word vision with preference. So in other words, it's not telling them that they have to do this, but it's our preference that you would do a project like this, of this nature. The next item is an entire paragraph after that, which has been reworded a little bit to change the phrase open to proposals to open to project approaches, and to add references to references to senior living, sustainability practices, and family-friendly activities. We're not trying to specify what exactly we're anticipating or looking for. Further down on page 3, we've 2 bullets have been added under non-residential uses. Hospitality and hotel, I believe that was something mentioned at one point in your conversation. And then other uses that might meet the reuse objectives would also be considered. So we put that phrase in there also. At that point, I would jump to the only other real change, which is on page 8, where 2 bullet points have been added under section 5, general project approach summary. And those 2 that you'll see there, I think I marked them. We want to hear their approach to partnering with the city financially and the potential role of TIF. We assume that one or more of these parties may be looking for tax increment assistance, and we want to hear what their thought is on partnering with the city financially. And then the next one right after that is description of creative methods your team has used to make past projects financially feasible. In other words, what have you done in other cities and villages across Wisconsin and the upper Midwest in order to bring resources together to make projects happen? We want to know their past experience in that. Apart from that, the document you're looking at is effectively unchanged. I will call your attention to the fact that we left very clearly on page 4, I believe it was, the phrase that we're not entertaining any LIHTC projects, nothing to do with the low-income housing tax credit program will be considered. With that, I would take any questions, and beyond that, staff would recommend authorization to move forward with the RFQ and begin soliciting interest from companies.
We have a motion on the floor by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman Giles. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Mormon?
Yeah.
That motion passes. Thank you. Item T, update on status of development agreement executed in September 2022 for the Marshfield Town Center, formerly Marshfield Mall. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh,
That's
sorry.
okay. That's right. That's right.
Item S, report on the list of tasks performed by the Communications Department and options to fill the funding gap facing the department in 2026 and subsequent years. Request made by Councilmember Werman, presented by Tom Laust, Communications Director, and David Ballerstein, Community Media Coordinator.
Good evening, and David will be joining me shortly as he's in the back room at the controls. So, but I'll start in the sake of time here. I want to thank you for the opportunity here to speak tonight. David and I are going to take this time to highlight the critical role of the communications department plays for here at the city of Marshfield, not only in community media, but in citywide communications, transparency, and public trust. In your packets, we provided additional details on some of the communication activities we've done over the past 6 years. In this presentation, we'll highlight our efforts more broadly. Our department is more than cameras and cable channels. We're the hub of how the city connects with residents, business staff, and elected officials. By doing this work in-house, we provide professional services with saving taxpayer dollars. A recent example that shows our worth is the fire department's referendum. The communications department handled the publications and outreach internally, saving the city approximately $25,000 compared to what was spent on outside contractors in the prior referendum. That earlier effort, which costed over $35,000, was not received by the public very well. And it ultimately, the referendum failed. By keeping this work in-house, we not only saved money, but also demonstrated responsible stewardship of taxpayer resources. Beyond cost savings, our work ensures consistent, accessible information across all platforms. When department staff share information only on a single channel, for example, through Facebook or Instagram, which is good, by the way, but you got to keep in mind that many residents never see it because they may not be using Facebook or Instagram, which can limit the outreach. And it even can create gaps in the knowledge of the community and with all of you as council members. A coordinated approach to the communications department ensures that everyone has equal access to timely and accurate information. Now I'd like to share what the communications department and community media, which is Marshfield Broadcasting, has accomplished. These are not abstract ideas. This is real work that is being done daily for our community. I'm just going to highlight government transparency. Our council preview and post-council update programs help residents understand what's before this body and what actions are taken afterwards. This information is shared well beyond community media as well. This content is retooled and published in the city newsletter, on the city website, through citizen notification platforms, to the local media, through mobile push notifications. The program can also be heard on WDLB, FM, and AM stations as well. We've reported on significant topics as the Weidenbrenner building redevelopment ideas and the growing housing challenges that we've had here in Marshfield, helping residents see how development decisions shape our city's future. We've covered city budget discussions and provided an easier understanding of where taxes go. That insert that you had seen last year, we provided that to make it easier with the dollar bill. We've covered the city budget, like I said, and made that easier as well. Updates from committees, commissions, and boards, helping residents better understand how long-term decisions are affected. So we do provide all that information from these meetings in a written format. We featured interviews and updates from city staff, such as the Assistant Chief of Police recently, members of the fire department, department leaders, providing context on who is responsible for the services they provide. And we've just did one on a campaign that we did with the police department. So we do work together quite a bit. It's really an important part of what we do is to work as a team. We keep the website primed with new content all the time, such as news events and other updates. We provide videos and articles about ordinances and why they have to be followed. I just did one on dog manure that would be left in city parks. So you wanted to make sure that people knew that through a short video. We provide in-depth weekly newsletter that what's happening from the department levels to even on the council level. We provide brochures for departments, saving them time and money so they don't have to be printed somewhere else. We also take photos and provide printing at no cost to the fire and police department. We then asked by council members, we respond quickly. We try to do our best when you guys ask for something to get out to the public. We provide surveys such as backyard chickens, decline, senior health fair, and housing. I'm going to have David go to the second part, and then we'll open up questions.
Good evening, David Ballerstein, Community Media Coordinator. So I will continue on page 2 here. So more of what the Communications Department and Community Media does is public safety and community awareness. We recently highlighted Wood County's modular vehicle barrier system designed to protect crowds at significant events. We provided a train safety, click it or ticket, and car seat safety. We also promoted the Safe Ride, helping to spread the word about transportation options that prevent impaired driving and help keep the community safe. Community programs and events. Our coverage at Dairy Fest, Main Street Parades, the Central Wisconsin State Fair showcased community pride and brought those events to the homes of those that could not attend. We've recently featured the Wildwood Zoo's Odads, sorry, which is the new mountain goats that Marshfield Zoo has acquired, connecting families to one of Marshfield's most beloved attractions. We supported the arts by covering events and programs at the Chestnut Center for the Arts. The next topic, community voices in partnership through community media. Coffee with the Mayor. We've created a direct line between city leadership and residents with Senior Talks, now called Vibrant Living Series. We've highlighted resources for older residents in video series. On County Connections, we covered county-level issues like public health, law enforcement, and emergency services. And programs like Hub City Times and Heroes for a Home shine a light on local people, businesses, and veterans. Through our partnership with Marshfield Clinic on Your Health Matters, we provide residents with trusted health information directly from one of our city's leading institutions. And beginning in October, we are adding a new show and partnership focused on small businesses, entrepreneurs in Marshfield, giving visibility to the innovators and job creators that strengthen our economy and our community. Together, these programs are more than just television shows. They are an archive of Marshfield's civic life. It is also important to be noted that city communication departments have become a vital tool for economic development. They showcase why families should move here, why business should invest, and why jobs are created. Marshfield has not fully tapped into this potential, but with the right support, our communications department can tell Marshfield's story in a way that promotes growth and strengthens our future. Imagine a future where the communications effort is not only to inform residents, but actively markets Marshfield as a community of choice, a place where businesses want to invest, where families want to settle, and where people see opportunities. That's the power of communications when it is used to its potential. Our ask tonight is simple. I respectfully request that the council continue the support of the communications department, both in funding and in policy. This means ensuring that departments share information to the communications so we can all reach all residents, not only those on one platform. Recognize that communication is not an option, but an essential to transparency, trust, and growth. And supporting resources needed to allow us not only to maintain, but to expand our services for the benefit of all residents. With your continued support, we do even more to ensure that our city is connected, transparent, and positioned for success. Thank you for your time and your consideration. If you have any questions, we will take those now.
Thank you both. Alderman Weigel?
Thank you, Mayor. Two, possibly three questions here. First, what's the ask? I know you want the support, but like, what's the number?
We don't have a number. We're funded by cable franchise fees, which are dwindling, and we're going to be at a budget shortfall. By the end of 2026, if we continue, we will not exist.
Right, so how much funding is that?
Our normal budget's around $250,000 a year. Cable franchise fees have covered that along with state aid, but unfortunately the cable franchise fees have dwindled because of people cutting their cord. So, we hope to continue to receive about $165,000. That's our projected outlook for 2026 for franchise fees, $49,500 from state aid, and then make up some of the other pieces through hopefully sponsorships. That's what we're going to go to. Possibly $15,000 from the general fund, because we do a lot of work that's related to really city services, and possibly and then taking some money actually out of reserves. But if we keep taking out of reserves, unfortunately, there won't be any reserves to take. So about 256 is about where we've been. Previous years, 2018 before me was 310,000. So we have saved money over the years by bringing it in-house and actually doing both. So hopefully that answers question.
I think so. So let me just try to summarize. You're asking for like 15,000 in the budget?
From the general fund right now, we're asking for, we're going to be putting it in the budget. Spoke with Steve in finance, and right now that's what we have. 5,000 again for sponsorship. That again is a hope, but we'll really shoot for that. And 15,000 then from our reserve fund. Reserve fund is around about 68,000 approximately. So that would leave us, this year we also are going to run into a budget shortfall because of our franchise fees are less than we projected. So right now we're trying to cut back so we don't spend things that were already budgeted for or approved by you guys. We've already made those cuts starting a month or two ago to be fiscally responsible.
Okay, and then just one last question then. We just had two presentations here from the Chair Foundation on Main Street, and there wasn't talk in there about like marketing. How much overlap is there between what you guys do and then Main Street and the Chair Foundation looking to do?
We do have in our fees structure, our fee schedule, that we do work for entities outside the city, which could be similar to local businesses, Mackey, Visit Marshfield, Main Street Marshfield. So we do have that in there. We have done work outside the city, so it's not coming from Marshfield Broadcasting. It's meant just like a production company. And that can raise some money, anywhere from $250 for a short video all the way up to $1,000. We've done some for schools here last year. We just have to go out and get the money. But yes, we can do that work. We just have to make sure we're planned. We can do video, we can do photo, we can do writing. We can do a lot of that marketing. We do it every day. It's kind of part of what we do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and Steve would like to expound on that answer?
Yeah, just to add a little bit to what Tom is saying about the 2026 budget, just to get Councilmember Rigel and others up to speed. What you're going to be seeing from me when you get your document, it's going to show $15,000 of general fund money put toward the communications department, along with $15,000 from their own 235 fund, which is money that's been left over from past years. This is the first time we've ever looked at allocating general fund monies toward the communications department. It's always been something we've told the people there's no taxpayer monies involved in. It's all cable franchise fees. But what they're looking at right now, as Tom was describing, with the dwindling money coming from charter through the franchise fees, for 2026, the estimate is that they will have $214,000 in fees from charter and from the state, $214,000, and their salaries and benefits alone would be $206,000, leaving almost nothing really to be able to do all the other work that they do in that department. So you can see that that's not financially stable or sustainable in the long run. So one of the things I'm hoping to have come out of the budget discussions and beyond is looking at a more sustainable model for the department. But I do believe that at least for now and perhaps for a while to come, some general fund money will be needed to make the picture work overall financially. But hopefully we'll be able to get some other revenues that Tom was describing from sponsorships and other things to make up some of that gap.
Alderman Werman?
Thank you. First of all, I want to give Tom and David their flowers. Not only was this exactly what I asked for, because I don't think anybody, including myself, and I've been, preaching the awesome work you guys do for the last 2.5 years that I've been on council. This was a great list, and I think you very much undersold yourself. It's great to see the savings of like what you did for the referendum compared to the previous year. Let's not even count the fact that the referendum passed. I mean, yes, you can't give yourselves full credit, I'm sure, but it was positively received, and that is a huge amount of savings for the city. I think you completely undersold the amount of value that you bring to the city. Also, for anybody who hasn't really read through the paperwork that they provided at the last meeting, when Tom's talking about cuts, like they went in detail. I think Tom was proposing like a $5 a month subscription cut. Like we're talking like $60 a year. He's doing whatever it takes. So I also want to commend you on that. I told you this in the communications committee meeting, and I'm going to stand by it here. I think there's certain parts of the city that would flounder without you. I think that, number one, we need to do whatever it takes to get through the next year. And it sounds like we have a potential solution on the floor here, and I like that. And then I think, kind of to Steve's point, going into the next year, and it can't be like our budget asks for this year that just kept getting pushed. We need to prioritize this, or we will come in way under again next year. And I think he's nailed it. We really need to reevaluate the system that you guys have for your budgets, whether the tech and communications become like one, budget, whether we talked about starting to chart internally, like every department slides a certain value over to your department to fund it because they are all reaping the benefits. Whatever it is, we need to be on top of that at the beginning of the year, and it needs to be resolved by mid-year at the latest so that we don't go into budget season stuck again, because it's going to be too late to make those changes. And I think hopefully everybody else sees it, but seeing just the amount of stuff that you guys have done, even prior to me being on the council, and if anybody wants the metrics, I'd encourage you to ask for them because I know they have them. But another great example I thought of is like people getting elected to the board. I remember when Andy ran, I think there was 4 candidates for that seat. And I will be honest, the only thing I did was watch the videos just out of interest that you guys did to see each candidate. So I think there's a lot more people like myself out there doing the same exact things. And without you guys there to do that, I'm assuming there would be just public forums that people might not show up to. So again, just a clap on the back for you guys. And like I said, let's get this first year out of the way and let's come up with a better solution next year and keep you guys funded.
Alderman Tompkins?
Thank you. I was going to ask, so when, let's say we have a department, police and fire, some other department, if they're using finance, then they're charged, but finance will give them a charge. So when you all are filming council meetings or committee meetings, are you charging that to the council budget? Or when you are doing a referendum, are you charging that back to fire? I'm just wondering if you are doing any of that sort of cost sharing between departments.
No, there's no cost coming to any departments. Our services are, I guess, free or included in because we get the full franchise fee, is basically to say. So we don't do chargebacks. We've talked about it numerous times. I think you even talked about it on a communications level, myself internally, but that hasn't come to fruition. Recently, I've been, well, not recently, but really the last couple of years, I've received information from other municipalities and sharing those with finance and the city administrator on how they handle their funding of communications and community media. And we're compiling that list now, and I think that's going to help us come in January to figure this out, because a lot of them are doing exactly what you have said. Chargebacks, similar to how engineering does that. Wastewater does it. Wastewater pays IT back. Yeah, we're different because really we came in kind of as we're a new department, and we had enough franchise fees back in 2019 to do that, but unfortunately it changed.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, this was for information only. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate you also. Thank you. Now, item T, update on status of development agreement executed in September 2022 for Marshfield Town Center, formerly Marshfield Mall, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do want to start by commending Tom and David for the work they do in that department. There's only two of them, but they certainly cover a lot of ground and do a number of things on behalf of the staff and the council and just getting the information out to our citizens as well. Well, I want to take a moment to celebrate, and we don't do that very often here, but I think it's worth doing. Because sometimes people wonder, well, you know, you supported that project, you had a TIF district, you gave money to this company. What really happened at the end of the day? Did we see fruit from it? So I want to just talk a little bit about the Marshfield Mall, as it used to be called. Now it's called the Marshfield Town Center, and just kind of walk briefly through what happened. I'm going to start even earlier than the outline that I put in front of you tonight, but in 2019, Ned Brickman from Midland Management came to see me, and he actually did a presentation to council in that year saying he would like to really reinvigorate the mall, get some ideas on how to get some bigger retailers in, and he had some of us kind of excited. Ultimately, he backed away for a variety of reasons, and then 2020 came, and we all know what that meant, right? That meant COVID. And for a couple of years, everything kind of went quiet in terms of trying to push brick and mortar operations, in places like the mall. And I think we all know that even during this time frame, we could see malls across the state and across the country beginning to die off a little bit. So it's been a tough time. But Mr. Brickman, who I really give a lot of kudos to, he came back in 2022, met with staff, met again with council, and by September 29th of 2022, the council, this body, some of you were here, some of you weren't, signed a development agreement with Midland Management, with the Marshfield Mall. Malls for You is what they're called. And the plan was to try and get real invigoration, led by 3 new large tenants that they were going to get, and then some other, smaller tenants that they felt they could get to supplement. Here's the key components to what we signed on to back then. The developer was required to secure at least 3 nationally recognized retailers. The retailers in question had to sign leases for at least 10 years. So it was not a here we are today, we're gone tomorrow type of thing. The commitment made by the developer was pretty big. He was committed to increasing the assessed value at that time from $6 million to a minimum of $14 million. Now, again, the assessment was going to be based not upon the value of the building. It was going to be based on the income approach, which means the commitment of the people signing on to leases and what they would pay brings up the assessed value of the property significantly, which it did. The city provided its funding commitment through TIF District number 10. No upfront payment. This was wonderful for the city because we don't like to borrow and put money out there from the beginning. It's what was called pay as you go. where we committed to $1.7 million to the developer over a period of years, a maximum of $1.7 million, to be reimbursed as he provided tax increment. Here was the plan. You get $100,000 new tax increment, in a given year. We will give you $85,000 of it back. We keep $15,000 for ourselves. It's an 85-25 split. What does the city get for it? We get obviously the 15% of tax revenue we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And we get what we all wanted back then, a rejuvenated Marshfield Mall. So then go ahead, what happened in 2025 as we look at it now? Hobby Lobby, Ross Dress for Less and Five Below all moved in. The assessed value as a 1/1/25 hit 17, I've got a typo on that, it should be 17 million, I think $135,000, I believe, but more than $3 million more than the required minimum under the development agreement were created. An astounding amount of more than $11 million of new value were created from this development. Additional development is occurring and will continue to occur around the mall area. They have future plans for more growth in some of the remaining spaces and the area's perimeter to the mall. So if you look ahead to now, the developer has requested the first payment under the municipal revenue obligation. I met with the finance director and the city attorney to get that thing signed, and as of November 1st, we will make that first payment. It'll be about $180,000. We'll make that payment annually based upon the assessed value at the time. But again, there's a $1.7 million cap on the money that we will ever pay to them. What did we get? We got a badly needed economic development boost. I think we all sat here, those of you who were part of the council back then, kind of wringing our hands, watching the mall go downhill. So we got a big economic development boost, keeping people here in town more on weekends than going to Wausau and other places. And yet we get an additional $32,000 a year in tax revenue for ourselves. I bring this up because questions are often raised about the use of tax increment financing. A little personal story, my dad was a council member in my hometown in Minnesota, and he used to tell me how awful tax increment financing was. He actually was very skeptical of it. He thought it was kind of a shell game. And I'm not saying some cities haven't used it that way. This was used very wisely, and it's benefited the city greatly. I want to thank Mr. Brickman, who was a great developer to work with, Mayor Teestrake, who was coming on board at that time, the members of the council, many of whom are here tonight that were here at that time, city staff, Jennifer Selensky, who was our finance director at the time, had come on board shortly before that. Dan Kinect played a big role. He was our public works director at the time. City attorney, Harold Wolfgram, did a marvelous job in working through some of the intricacies of that development agreement to get us to the finish line. And I want to also thank Ellers, our financial advisor, who weighed in a number of times to make sure that the finances all added up. So again, I thank you for giving me time to do this. It sounds like we're just patting ourselves on the back, but I think this is worthy of celebrating and letting the public know that wise choices were made by this body, and it's greatly benefited the city of Marshfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other comments from the council members? Seeing none, move on to item U, suggested items for further agendas. Alderman Weigel.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to see proposed a policy for when we get presentations that involve money, where the source of that money is coming from and the impact it have on the citizens of Marshfield too. Because I feel like in nearly all the meetings that I've been in on my 2 and change years here, the question always comes up of, okay, where are we funding it from and how's it going to impact people? And, we're on the eve of budget season again, and I think that's just an entry-level data point that we need for these. And so I think it'd just be beneficial to the council members, but then also people too that are looking at the documents, that it has to just put in there pretty black and white. Here's what it's costing, here's what it's coming from, and here's how it's going to impact the average citizen.
Alderman Tompkins.
Thank you. In light of our 2026 budget, where we've already been informed that there will be cuts, I would like to request a report of the contract that the city has with Marshfield Utilities for the use of their communications utility. Marshfield Utilities is a municipal utility, so though we own it, we are also a customer. I'd like in that report for there to be review of the communication utilities net profit margin and their cash reserve. and to compare that with the net profit margin and cash reserve of the water and electric utilities, because those are tightly regulated by the PSC or the Public Service Commission. I would like to determine if the city is being charged a fair and reasonable rate.
Alderman Spiros?
Yes, I would like to know and maybe get a report if we applied for any of the grants for local projects program, because the expiration for those grants are the 31st of October. And I think the one that comes to mind for me is the police station. The grants can be up to $2 million a piece. And additionally, Representative Spiros has agreed to write letters of recommendation if we do indeed apply for any of those grants. He would need to be notified, though.
Alderman Werman?
Thank you. I had two. I know we're in the midst of budget season, but I would like two things. One, I would like the last year's report on any grants that we applied for, qualified for, and received, so that we can get an idea of how we're doing against other municipalities in terms of grant funding. And then the second one was I would like suggested ideas from certain departments, and the ones that come to mind are Parks and Rec and like utilities on not just budget, but ideas for revenue. I know we've kind of done a little bit of back and forth. Justin has a couple of times come up and answered about potentially charging for usage of the UW field come up in terms of maintenance. So I would like, even if it's just ideas, I would like ideas on where we can start bringing in revenue. We did not get to it earlier this year, and I think it's going to be imperative going into budget season and into next year.
Anyone else? Seeing none, item V, adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin Statute Chapter 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. First, development agreement for project located in Mill Creek Business Park, and the second, development agreement for a project at West McMillan Street / St. Joseph's Avenue. We have a motion by Alderman O'Reilly, second by Alderman Dellis. All those in favor, please vote to go into closed session.
Mr. Werman?
Yes.
We're in closed session and we will take just a